Hey there, Banditos. Welcome back to the Dollar Bin Bandits podcast. We were off last week. I hope you all had a great summer and are ready for more, bigger, better interviews with comic creators from around the world. Today, we have a big one. It is with Brian Michael Bendis. It is with Michael Avon Oeming, and we are celebrating the 25th anniversary of Powers. They have a new book set in the world of Powers coming out called Powers 25. It comes out very shortly, the first issue, and it's going to be at least a mini series and maybe beyond that. So we get into all things Powers, as you might expect. You know, how the project came about, how Michael and Brian met, what they did to keep the narrative moving, how they developed the characters and where they went, the evolution of the series. We get into a little bit about the TV series. So it's really a wide ranging interview. I think you're going to love it. So I will stop talking and we'll get to the conversation. This is Brian Michael Bendis and Michael Avon Oeming. Brian Michael Bendis, Michael Avon Oeming for Powers, the 25th anniversary. Guys,
Yeah.
how you doing?
Fantastic. And we would like to rename this podcast Three Middle-Aged Guys Talking About Other Podcasts. Can we do that? That's what you missed before.
Yes, that's what you missed in case we don't release the early part of the podcast. We were definitely talking about
Okay.
other podcasts. Why not? It's very meta.
Yes.
Okay, so
Yes.
let's do the big rewind. Even before this project, you were two aspiring and working cartoonists, comic book writers, artists. How did you first meet?
Do you remember or like I always tell them what is my
This is how most of our conversations start. It's like Brian tells me, "Do you remember?"
No, it's great because you can tell Mike a story like 50 times and he always goes, really? He's always genuinely like I have like my wife and other friends of mine are like, you've told me this. I'm like, oh, but Mike never says it. Um, so we met at a store signing in Philadelphia. I was already good friends with David Mack, and it was Claude's Comics. I believe they're no longer with us. And they had a what I recommend every store to do, which is host a bunch of indie creators. There was just a bunch of like it was like I think 6 or 7 people, all of which were just trying to make their ways in black and white comics of the day. Me and David knew each other. We get there. We were sitting with Mike, immediately fell in love with Mike. We went out to dinner that night, had a great like just hang, and traded numbers. Went home. Because this is our 25th anniversary, the next sentence will not be as shocking, but it is hard to say out loud still. Mike then faxed over some drawings. Google it, everybody. It's a fax machine, and it's a mojo. It takes 20 minutes to put. He had just inspired by the weekend, I guess, or just hanging around with us, drew versions of Kabuki, David's book, and my book at the time was a book called Jinx about a bounty hunter in Cleveland, and he drew his version of those characters and faxed them on over, just as a friendly gesture. And I had not seen anything I'd ever created drawn by someone else before. And also, I struggle as an artist, and I was always struggling, and immediately had this like deep feeling of, oh, I way wish Mike was drawing this book over me. Like I would buy this book over my drawings of this book any day of the week. And I believe I called David Mack and said, are we going to fight over him or can I just have him? And I did. I felt a very strong need to collaborate with Mike, and for me, this was a very new experience. I had come into comics as a full creator. Mostly out of necessity, which is I have to learn how to letter because I can't afford a letterer. I have to learn how to color. I can't afford a colorist. So I was drawing and doing everything myself out of necessity, but also glad that I did it this way because I learned a lot of stuff that to this day I apply to how I communicate and collaborate. But this reaching out to Mike and saying, "Hey, you want to do something together?" was a real big thing for me. Like I'd never done that before. Like even David and I were friends, but like David would like I don't know, it was like I felt I wanted to work with Mike. I wanted to collaborate. I wanted to write a song. I wanted to make a Beatles album with Mike. And he called up and we started talking, and he was also redeveloping. Now, I'm going to let Mike rewind because Mike had a whole career happen before any of this had happened before. I was still struggling in the indies, but Mike, you had already had a run of stuff at both Marvel and DC and other
Yeah,
things.
at that point, I had like clawed my way up from like super independent comics to starting as an inker because my inking was still stronger than my drawing, and I started inking at a very early age. I was like 14, but I didn't really get consistent work until I was like 16 because I was dropping out of school. Um, but I built my way up through like time was called Paradox Press. They were doing a bunch of indie graphic novels at DC, which led to other gigs like Daredevil inking over Scott McDaniels.
That would be great. You and Scott McCloud and Daredevil?
Yeah.
God damn, that sounds amazing.
Yeah. And then eventually over at DC, and then all led up to working on like Judge Dredd. And so I was penciling and inking Judge Dredd for DC for about 6 issues, something like that. And after that, it was Foot Soldiers at Dark Horse. And that's kind of around the time I met Brian and David, which was also sort of around the time the industry started to collapse. One of the times that it started to collapse,
Unrelated to
the
us meeting,
speculator
the
market.
industry
Right.
was,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
nothing to do with this meeting.
It was
I have
such
an
a
image of
cosmic
the
shift when
ground
we came to
falling
mind.
and you
Yeah.
guys hanging one after the other onto the edge.
It was a speculator market at the time. Um, but Brian's right. Like when we met, there was just this kismet thing where like we liked each other, we liked each other's energies. We were all doing different but similar things. I didn't really, even though I grew up on a lot of creator-owned work, like Nexus was one of my favorite books from First. Um, I didn't really know what creator-owned comics was. Like it was I don't know that term even really became strong until around the time Brian and I had met.
We
But
invented it.
we
We invented the term. It was us.
yeah.
It didn't exist before.
Yeah.
But yeah, we clicked so hard that night that like there was an after party. And I remember David and I wrestling. This is within hours of meeting each other,
Well,
and
this
he
is
gave
true.
me a
You
black
remember.
eye. And he gave me a black eye, and we've been friends ever since.
So very funny. David grew up in Kentucky. Mike grew up in Jersey, and grew up with very physical friendships. And my friends were still friends. Did not have a physical friendship. So it was when David and Mike just saw each
Yeah,
other as, oh, we can tussle.
we could beat the
And
crap out of each other. That wasn't
yeah,
like when I was a kid, like fire and glass and bikes. You just combine those things, and you're either jumping over bikes or you're jumping over fire. Or you jumping over broken glass and fire with your friends laying in between it and stuff. I
this
get
is
the feeling.
what the world was like before the internet, kids. Anyway,
Yeah.
so but yeah, so it was very funny to watch them find each other's energy and just go at each other pretty good.
Yeah, it sucks
Um,
getting old because I miss doing that. We for years we would wrestle in
yeah,
hotel hallways and stuff, and it was totally inappropriate, but it was fun. It's what you do when you're young.
um, so I had been working in crime comics. That was my genre throughout the 90s, and in my research had done a lot of ride-alongs with cops and doing a lot of like reading David Simon's book Homicide, which became the TV show. But the
Right.
book is outstanding if everyone ever gets a chance to pick it up. It's a real classic, and it's just about him spending a year with the Baltimore Police Department and just taking in everything he's seen. And I had read Clockers by Richard Price, which was similarly researched and it was a two-fisted look at what was going on in New York in the drug and police and how they're handling it situation at the time, made into a inferior movie by Spike Lee. Sorry. And so these two books were very inspirational to me, and I weirdly came up with the what's the superhero version of this of Homicide, and it was weird because I wasn't thinking that way about anything else. And I've been realizing because I grew up when I was in high school, Watchmen and Dark Knight Returns come out, and they were such powerful statements of the genre that I had decided that everything has been said. Like there's nothing else to say. It's all been said, and moved on into other areas of the medium that I liked. But here I was years later, considering what my relationship to the reason I was in comics, which is superheroes. What was my relationship? What's the unique thing I had to say? And I had the idea, but weirdly had no visuals. Like I didn't like know what it looked like. And that's when I went, I was waiting for like literally you go, oh, I was waiting for this guy. I was waiting for Mike. Like Mike's the other half of it. And I pitched it to him. I think I pitched something else, but Powers was the strongest idea.
No,
And
it was Powers. And at first, like there were
right.
superheroes in it, and I was interested in what you were doing, which was Torso and AK Goldfish, and like I wanted to do hard crime because I was doing all this like science fiction and fantasy stuff. So I saw superheroes at first. I was like,
Yeah, and we had done a short just to see it, as I say to my students and anyone who wants to make comics with someone, don't start with your 25-year epic. Do a couple of short pieces together. Do just see how it feels. If it feels good, chase it to the end of the earth. If it doesn't, listen to your body if it's saying this isn't healthy. But in this instance, we did a piece for I think Negative Burn or something and it was just I'm like, oh yeah, I want to see my words on these arts. And then we started cooking Powers, and I think I pitched it to you, and my memory is that you sent those drawings that we show in the back of the first trade. You sent them immediately,
oh
and it
yeah,
was
yeah,
so yes, that's it. Like it was so and now that we're older, we know that how special that is, how it doesn't always happen, even if you're hoping with everything you have. And also, me having met other people in other mediums, musician friends, filmmaker friends who have had similar moments where, like, oh, yeah, you're my person. We're
yeah.
going to make stuff. And being right is an incredible situation. So that was it for us. And it was, and the one thing that was funny is that neither one of us was at that moment had ever had a hit book. We never like lit the world on fire with our sales. We had just
Yeah.
like I remember always going, well, I get nice reviews and I don't cost anybody any money. So I was always like in a position where I get to make the next book. That was always like as long as I get to make the next book, right?
Right.
And I was doing a lot of side jobs, I was doing caricature work and anything I can get my hands on to supplement my income so I can go make my
Book
books,
addiction.
right?
Yeah.
My ink addiction.
Yeah.
And so yeah, I couldn't afford drugs. Anyway, so we like went to Image, which we were both being published at the time, and said we had an idea for a full color book, which was ridiculous based on our numbers. And I'm very grateful. Jim Valentino shrugged and went, "Okay, we'll try, but be ready emotionally and physically to switch to black and white once the numbers come in. So have a black and white version ready." Because you may not be able to afford this just based on everything that's ever happened to you. So he wasn't being mean. He was actually being very supportive by being saying, we want to put this book out, but and also like it didn't look like a crime book, it didn't look like a superhero book, it didn't look like what was known as the things it would look like at the time, even to this day. So we were kind of fighting against a couple of tides. What was popular in Image at the time was a lot of girls in metal bikinis with bloody swords. It was a lot of that, a lot of the bad girls of the day. So we weren't going to do anything that was of the moment. So we were like very sure we were going to get 6 issues out of this, and that was it. And I'm not being cheeky, but that was
Yeah.
really how we felt. But what ended up happening was a lot of goodwill that we would been building over the years in other projects. And at the same time, Ultimate Spider-Man was just on the horizon, and people were hearing my name differently. And so there was a little bit of, oh, well, okay, what's he do? What is this? Why him? And so people would check out Powers to see what the deal was. So it was a mixture of finally being in the right place at the right time for us. And our numbers came in and they were like right on the fence for the first issue. But as people who, not everyone knows, but in comics, for some reason, no matter what your first issue numbers are, the second issue numbers are way lower, and then
Mhm.
it's just a fight to stop the bleeding to get to settle in on the number that would be your number, right?
Right.
And God bless our second numbers were down, and then the third numbers were up, and then the fifth numbers were higher than the first numbers, and then we kept building well into our 20s. Like the numbers kept
Yeah.
going up, and we were so used to the other experience that it literally took all years for us to register it as successful because
Right.
it was just like we were just wired for the other thing. And thank you for nodding, Mike, because I really we were just like, what's
Oh,
happening?
for sure. Well,
Yeah.
I also think too, like there were other things in play. One of the things being that Image had proven itself, was just beginning to prove itself beyond its founding creators, right?
Right.
And there had been this influx of other books, some of which really stood out at the time. And I
But you
think
remember we
ours stood.
missed that window too, though. There was a
There
window
was, yeah, this
where
sure
retailers
this was
thought like Eric Schonauer's book was going to be like and no, I love Eric Schoenauer.
yeah,
But they
yeah,
thought it
yeah,
was going to be
yeah.
Wildcats, and it wasn't, and so they
It's that kind of
overordered.
thing where you
Yeah.
don't want to be in the first wave, right? Because people weren't really sure what the first wave, and so like we had shown up kind of like after all that calmed down, so people were willing to give a chance. And Image was still a very, very good, just as a platform, as we say now, right? A place where you can find things. And then it was the subject matter of Powers was commenting on superheroes in a way that hadn't really been done in a while. It's been done before to some extent and different stuff, but I often think about how success, and I try and tell people this all the time, it is so beyond your talent and what you're actually executing right then. Like if we had come out with Powers today, freshly, it wouldn't be the same thing. That's why the new Powers has to say something different than the old Powers. We were saying something at the time that was resonating, and sometimes what you're saying, what your book is saying, if it's coming out at the right time, it's gonna hit and it's gonna take off. And you can say the exact same thing 3 years later. It might not have that thing. So like we had
Yeah.
all of these. It was the stars aligning. It's not just how talented you are. You have to have several other things happening at once, and you can't get lightning twice in the jar. And this was an amazing experience and just a lot to learn from.
Yeah, it was good, and it was also just it was good to have the partnership together, have it. Every experience we've had with Powers, most of my most unique experiences in comics has been with Powers, and to sharing it is the most important part. It's like it's just it's incredible to like our my best memories are like, oh my God, they made a Powers TV show, but I vaguely remember any of it. I just remember standing on the set with Mike, and we were kind of like standing next to each other, kind of just half hugging and bouncing. We just like bouncing
Yeah.
on the set. It just this pure joyous experience and that's what it's about. So when I see collaborators not getting along or not appreciating each other or not putting value into it, I literally was like, oh, no, no, you're missing the best part. Like, you are missing the best
Yeah.
part. And we've had friends that have had success, but the partnership had blown up before the success had happened or during the success. I'm like, oh, you missed it. That yeah, great, you got some money, but that's not the best part.
Right, right, right. Mike, I'd like to back up to a couple of points there. One was, and I read this too, and you alluded to it already, is sort of the apprehension about doing superheroes, even superheroes that are sort of married to a different genre. What was that apprehension about? Why was there sort of a reticence to tackle superheroes?
Well, let me say for the record first, I do like superheroes, and I've enjoyed, like I did like a Midnighter mini series with my wife Taki a year or two ago with Becky Cloonan and Michael Conrad, and that was really fun. And I've dipped my toe in it, and I do enjoy superheroes. But something that Brian mentioned earlier, it kind of rung in my head, which was I came into comics in 1986. It was when I started reading comics. So you're talking about Watchmen and Dark Knight, Daredevil. Shortly after that was Batman Year One, and like it had raised such a bar on what superheroes could be that everything after that felt lackluster. All the way to these days, right? Like I'm still measuring everything up to that. And there are books that have come out that are much better than those books, right? But they're these little teeny tiny diamonds. But for the most part, those books were so good and I got them at such an early age, it kind of ruined everything else for me. Like even my own interests. Like I thought I was going to draw X-Men. I thought I was going to draw Spider-Man and Daredevil, but everything I was creating was weird indie stuff. And I didn't connect it in my head until much later. So I think when Brian was showing like a superhero thing, that's what my reaction was to that. I felt like, I can't, not that you can't compete with those early things, because they were done in a vacuum and they were done by very similar people, so it was always seen from a very specific kind of view. But yeah, it definitely kind of sucked the interest out for me, which I didn't realize. So I think
Well,
that's what the reaction to that was.
we also had this like year we were developing it and putting it together, and the whole year that was going on, I'm sitting there going, has no one ever done a book called Powers? Like that seemed like how did that not happen? And there was a Power Comics in the 30s, but there was not a book called Powers, and no one's done this idea. Like this
Oh,
idea seems like
but then we had the
oh,
pants scared off us
I'm,
because Alan Moore's book.
yes, this is what I'm talking. I'm talking. This is what I'm talking. Go ahead. Yeah, this is what I'm talking about. But like, we thought we had like, well, we thought we're sitting on gold that no one had found yet, and that's so rare. Like, and I'm sitting there going, and yes, there'd been like Commissioner Gordon. There's been cops dealing with superheroes, but from this point of view, that this way we want to do it, we're like, wow, no one's done this, huh? And then they announced Alan Moore, top 10. He's doing the
Right.
tops in superheroes.
Yeah.
And having not seen it and just heard it, I went, nah,
Yeah,
just got busted by the greatest living comic book writer. Oh well, how embarrassing. Guess this will happen a lot, right? You hear it
yeah,
happen to other people,
Right.
right? And then I remember having a twinge of, oh, maybe we should not do this then. Like maybe we should just find something else to do. And then decide, and I'm like, no, I'm so into this. Like I like no. And then I remember someone said something about like you know, they didn't stop making gangster movies after Godfather. Like you still have something to say. There's still like 100 great gangster movies since Godfather. So I'm like, oh yeah. Well, like I'm not even the same type of writer as him. And so when the book came out, I was like, oh, this couldn't be more different than ours. Like a million, there's
Yeah.
nothing that's
yeah,
the same. I was so grateful that I didn't chicken out. Like I really felt
yeah.
like I was chickening out in the moment, but I really thought for a moment
It's
there,
ironic too because we consider ourselves, and proudly so, children of Watchmen. But then the top
oh,
10 is
for
what
sure.
scared the crap out of us, right?
Yeah.
The
It
father of
is
Watchmen is going to come get us.
Yeah.
Yeah, anyway,
it is amazing how different those series are, given that if
totally.
you were just to vocally describe what they're about, it would be a pretty similar concept.
And
But just
especially when you're hearing like before it comes out, like the pre-pitch,
yeah,
when you don't get a sense, because really, like many things, top tens in the details and what it
yeah.
feels like when you read it. It's a very unique reading experience. And yeah. I just I point out like sometimes I think like younger creators are listening to us, and I just want to tell you, yeah, don't back off your thing if you love your thing, right?
Yep. Yep.
That would be a huge mistake on our part.
So you guys had, I guess, a luxury. I mean, maybe you didn't know what you were getting yourselves into, but having this, you spoke about a year of sort of preparation and development of the concept before it actually, went to publish. Although you also were holding in the other hand that, maybe this doesn't go more than 6 issues. How much did you know how much to develop because you were doing, in terms of characters, in terms of the world, but yet try to be, I guess, realistic in, how much you might get to do ultimately.
I always have, and I had it at Marvel too, particularly in my early days, a bit of blind faith arrogance, and just enough where I'm not hurting myself, but enough like I think I positively visualize things going a certain way. And sometimes I'm wrong, but sometimes you feel like just visualizing them helps them happen, right? Like if you really can see like a library of Powers books, you can make a library of Powers books. So there's a little bit of that in me. I remember Ultimate Spider-Man was only offered to me as a 6-issue miniseries as well. Like it wasn't a full series. And I'm the one that said, "Oh, let's keep going." Like, and I'm just trying to keep the gig going.
Yeah.
But also at the same time, I really did believe I'm like, we're putting so much work into launching this and we have more story to tell. Let's let the audience tell us to stop. Like, why are we stopping on our own, right? So there was a little bit of that in my head of even though they're saying be ready for 6, I go, I don't know. I think this might go. Feels real good because it felt so good. You can't help but going, isn't there a way for me to communicate to everyone else how good this feels? And that you should join us maybe. And so even though I was prepared for the worst, always, I'm Jewish, um, I was also very much visualizing a book that would continue to keep going, whether it was a hit book or not, or whatever would happen. That I was not doing. Just that we would get to continue to make it without losing our shirts. That would be great.
Do you remember in the when the Hobbit came out, the Peter Jackson Hobbit film, and there was that
How old
horrible
do you think I
scene,
am? That book's like 150 years old. Anyway.
and that horrible scene of Legolas leaping from brick to brick as this like bridge falls, and everybody's making fun of the physics of it. That's
Right.
literally what comics is like making. Like you're just going from one sinking ship to the next, but you're not going to stop, right? And you hope that someday, like Powers, you'll find, oh wait, I've stuck a landing. Like here it is.
Right.
But in the meantime, you just do everything with this sense of attrition towards failure. And by failure, I don't mean creative failure. I mean it's just the marketing specific, the way the market is, but most specifically our distribution system is like setting yourself on fire. I don't know why we do it.
How
It's
so?
it's incredibly terrible.
Well, the guy
But
with the hose just left us, so we'll see what happens next.
so yeah, like that's why, like, even if you don't know what your book's going to do, why you keep doing it, so otherwise we could move on to other industries and stuff. I was in video games for a little while. It was very good. I had great health insurance and all that stuff, and I became a functional alcoholic while I was there because I still wanted to make comics. So no matter what, that was our attitude then, and that was our attitude now, which is like, it's just what we do. It's just what we do. There's not much other choice. It's compulsive.
Was there any difficulty in tracking the visuals for you, Michael, or was it sort of immediately obvious like what this world, what these characters were going to look like?
It was obvious except for one doubt. And Brian loves this part. I one day sent him with a bunch of sketches, um, uh, uh, some sketches that had a whole lot of lines on it because we were going to image, and I was like, maybe I need to render this like this, and it was still cartoony, right? But like there was like just tons of feathering and all those lines that we were thinking, maybe we need to go, maybe to sell, like it needs more lines. So that was,
Cross-hatching.
I think that was literally the only doubt because Brian, um, early on, I think one of Brian's strengths as a writer, as an artist, as everything was clarity. Like he wasn't about crime was this big thing to him. Crime is several different things, and this was crime noir. This was specifically not about cops, not necessarily even about the thieves and the robbers and the killers. It was about detectives and what is the world like from their point of view. And from that point of view, it sort of informed what our color look like, what do the characters look like, what is the pacing of the story, right? And clarity like that will be a compass for all your choices. And as soon as we had a couple of conversations, I was on the same page, and yeah, there was never a question of like, do we go left or right here or anything. Like it was always, once you have a direction like that, it becomes very crystal clear. makes everything easy. Like if you figure out what you're doing in a direction, it just informs your decisions. And that's early on. We knew these things. We knew we didn't want to be with the superheroes at first. For the longest period of time, it was ground up, right?
Mhm.
A dull sense of colors in the real world because it's a dull world until the superheroes show up, and then there's color, right? um Size difference. Why was Walker so big? The secret that he was this remember at the beginning nobody knew that he had powers at one point. Nobody knew he was a superhero and all this stuff,
Spoilers.
or that he still had powers. So all of these choices were informed, and it helped to drive everything. So I can say there wasn't too much. I mean, I didn't write the plots early on, so maybe the plots were harder, but even then, we
No,
were commenting on society. So we had these sort of templates of like, John Lennon and Janis Joplin and stuff, right? Like,
we together came up with, we knew a lot of our heroes, like we knew one of the tricks to building something from scratch is that you set your rules. Like people will believe anything you say as long as you say this is the rule, right? So even like Ghostbusters, like don't cross the streams. Like that's the rule, right? So when you set up the rule to break the rule, but you set up the rule and you make it very clear. So what we did, we go, why is this book different from every Marvel and DC book? We're staying with the cops. We don't leave their presence, right? And so everything happens from their point of view. So it's visually looking up to what they're looking at or looking down at what they're looking at. So you're with them, right? So you stay there. So when we break the rule, years later, it's whoa, okay, so that was on purpose, right? Like because you set that table, and then also we had like we knew color was for us a gift that we were not been given before, except for other, but for us this was a gift. So what are we going to use the color for? How are we going to use it? And there was a lot of like philosophy I saw from like David Fincher and early Steven Soderbergh, where the color is a tool. There's a lot of this discussion in a great documentary that I saw at the time called Visions of Light. It's on YouTube, remastered. It's incredible. Watch it. It's about the art of cinematography. It's about art of telling stories with the visual, the movies, but the art specifically of cinematography, and how to light things and how to not light them and how to use the color to tell story. And so I'm like, and there's a lot in that documentary about like the movie The Last Emperor, and every color meant an emotion. And in the film noir section, the John Alton, the guy who invented film noir, talks about, oh, don't be, it's not to be afraid of the shadows, you should be afraid of the light. I'm like, oh, these are philosophies that changed my life like hugely. So I'm like, all right, let's apply those to powers. But then also, okay, so what do we have? We have a world that feels a certain way. It's dark and it's Finchery and and then, but when the superheroes show up, they bring the color with them, right? Just like Mike said before, they bring the color with them, but then they also take it away when they leave. Right. So there's an emotion with that you can actually like, oh look, I'm in the grace of this great presence. Oh, and then they took it away. Like you feel that, oh, now they're gone, right? So these ideas that could be visual, never referenced in the dialogue. It's always like you see it and feel it, right? And also will look different than Sin City and Spider-Man. Like, well, those are the two things that were out there that we were trying not to be like, right? So these are just, there was some other subtle things that we did, but those are the things. Like the only time you ever see the color green is in the interrogation room because there's a drainer, and that drainer means that everyone's on the same field powers wise. Like that's how a cop can interrogate a power. But so the only time you ever see green is there, right? So things like that were just very strong ideas that when we would change them down the line, it would be for effect for people who are paying attention.
Yeah. I mean, I love that idea of sort of setting up the rules of the world, right? So that there is some expectation from the audience that there's something cohesive about that, but also being able to set it up so that when you do break them, it is a big effing deal.
We were talking just before we got on the air about like people like the Coen brothers, and they do this. They go, even if you're not aware of all the rules they've set for themselves, there is a storytelling going on here with such purpose with such, like this camera has been placed here, not willy-nilly.
Right.
Like, think about it. That even if you're not like doing a deep dive on everything, you're feeling like you're in the hands of someone who has an idea. Like, just sit back. We got you. The story's going to be told, right? Christopher Nolan is like this. Like
Hmm.
there is something going on here. Sit back and let it happen. So
Yeah.
we're big believers in that.
Awesome. Let's talk about the two protagonists, Christian Walker and Dina Pilgrim. Um, did they sort of emerge fully formed? Was there a lot of workshopping that went into them?
Not fully formed because I'm always like reminded by the bad choices that I may have brought to the table. They may have been in the first scripts. Like Christian Walker's first name was Christian Powers because he used to have powers and now he works at Powers and his name is Powers. That is a terrible idea.
Let me write that down.
Yeah, right then. But again, it's like something you'd see on like CBS in the 80s, right? It was just like, but flushing out the bad version of it to get to the more interesting version of both characters, right? And there was a time where Walker always had his powers, but wasn't going to use them. Like he was like either ashamed about using them or something bad had happened, so he's never going to use them again. And that was a bad idea. It's just a different kind of story. That's not the story that would have taken us anywhere that interesting. So like when I look back on the notebooks, I go, yikes! Proud of myself for moving past it, but it's still ashamed that the ideas ever even popped in my head. So, but I do think I think about them often because even as I'm developing new stuff with Mike and my friends now, I remember like it's okay if it's not all gold. You'll get there. Like it's not there's I probably mentioned it even on your podcast, but there is a great document online, the Raiders of the Lost Ark story conference transcript. And George Lucas, Steven Spielberg, and Lawrence Kasdan got together in a room, a little bit of a writer's room, and just worked out what would be Indiana Jones. And they decided to record it on a Citron tape to just let's just tape it so we have it, right? And you can hear them workshop it from every angle. And you can hear like Spielberg go, maybe Marion's the bad guy. Maybe she's secretly a Nazi. And they're like, yeah, like, but they're like working it through. Like when I grew up, Indiana Jones was burst into the world a perfect
Yep.
storytelling idea, device, and character.
Yeah.
So the fact that there's a document that proves that everyone struggles through developing their idea, it's such a relief to me. It's such a like, oh, like we everything's a struggle. Nothing pops out of you perfect first stage. And even if you have a moment where it all comes flying out of you, it's because you were working on it for months, right? Like when like Dolly Parton or other songwriters talk about that song flew out of you in 20 minutes, she goes, after 20 years it did.
Right.
But yeah, the actual moment of typing was small in comparison to everything that I know that represents. So those are things I think about these things a lot when we're developing, and Powers absolutely had this stuff. What we definitely know we knew we wanted was there was a cop who used to be in the world of Powers and a cop that never was, right? We definitely wanted
Mm.
to do the classic different points of view of the case, right? And we're growing up in the world of X-Files and other things that are like that out there, but this is as old a tradition as there is storytelling, is the odd couple. you know, we knew one of our rules, they will never sleep together. There is no sexual chemistry. That is not what this is. I also think it was a reaction to that we had seen so many bad movies and TV shows where they leaned into some sexual chemistry and then ruined it, right? Everyone's trying to do moonlighting. We're like, we're not doing moonlighting, right? It's not a will they or won't they. It's wow, what happened to them is what the question is. So
A
and
lot, a lot of choice was easy because it was like just don't do everything else that's going on, like not sexualizing our two characters, even though we see both of them nude at different times. It's usually under horrible
not
circumstances.
titillation. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
not titillation, right? And like we just, and there was moments of titillation in the comics, but there's a time and a place for everything, right? But those big choices were easy to make because there was a lot around us that was there's a lot of sameness. Like, so even when it was good, sometimes it was just still just a better version of the other things. So just kind of not doing everything else made a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Now, you didn't know this at the beginning that this would be 25 years on. You would still be talking about this. You would still be making comics with these characters. But, at some point, a few years in, you're under a good, head of gas or a head of steam, rather. How do you keep the characters and maybe even the story or the world fresh, but yet still familiar enough that the people that are, into it want to continue to look for that comfort, I guess.
This was a very exciting thing around year two when they kind of realized that the book is whatever we want it to be because we're starting with a dead body. The dead body begins an investigation, and that investigation goes wherever we want to go. So our first thing is don't repeat ourselves. You literally have no reason to at all. If power is at its base level, is using the communal feeling of a shared universe ideal, right? There's Marvel and DC and Atlas and all these other like shared superhero universes that people understand that's what it is and things can be. So we're playing with what that feels like, right? So, and because it's shared universe, we can go as into the street as we want to go, and we can go as cosmic as we want to go, depending on where our passions lie, real fully where our passions lie, right? So at one
Yeah.
moment we're at street level, right? And we're at and then we're at like maybe like a Justice League level, and then maybe we're like, and then we were even surprised, like, are we fucking in space? Are we like we're
Well, we did something really crazy in retrospect. Like when we opened up powers where there was like we're eye level with the superheroes, right? We're having superhero battles and stuff. Before we did that, we went. I don't remember the exact number of the stories, but there's like Who Killed Retro Girl, role play, anarchy. This is all straightforward shit, right? And then one day people pick up an issue and there are monkeys. It's Stanley Kubrick monkeys flirting with each other at a water hole and then going at it. And like just there's no warning. Nobody knew what any of this was about. The issue ends silent with grunting and blood and stuff. And then the next issue, it's Conan, and again, no explanation where any of this is going. And basically, and then my favorite story of that was by the time we got up to like the 1920s, and there's this long conversation with Einstein. It was sort of our first meta conversation about what is powers, this book that you're reading, through Einstein's words. And you chose Einstein's actual dialogue. Like you pulled out actual, almost all of his
everything he
dialogue was
says he had
real
said. Yeah.
Einstein stuff. And you got him to talk about powers. So like we didn't go into the superhero thing. We didn't like it wasn't like this slight curve. It was like we went way off topic into Highlander territory.
Mythology. We went to mythology.
Yeah, to the
Why there's
mythology.
always heroic figures in every culture in every society,
Mm-hmm.
And Walker, why is he going through this? Why doesn't he die? Why doesn't this question that I love too, because it's such a comment on men in a way. Like, why do we not evolve? Right? Walker is basically the same person to the beginning of time, and he can't figure out his own problems. And he's trying to like figure out like, why is everybody hurting around me? Why can't I fix anything? And it's all because he doesn't change, right?
Right.
It's just all this brilliant stuff that Brian worked in there that was so fun to find visual metaphors for the way Walker carried himself. There is a sorrow, but not like a not like a mopiness to Walker that really informed him.
yeah,
And then all of that would reflect back on Dina, who was the opposite of all these things, who her darkness was really dark, and there was stuff that she was struggling with that we got to explore. That again just deepened her to a character that now with the return, I'm looking at her in every scene and seeing all of the baggage that she's carrying. From the last for her whole adult life, basically. Um, yeah, that's why I love Powers. There's just like all these layers to it.
so what Mike is talking about was we did, I think our fourth volume, we decided to like really pull the Band-Aid off the secret of Christian Walker. We really made a meal out of it, right? Like well, first we say what there was a secret that gets revealed in the first storyline, but then you get a bigger sense that there's way more going on with this dude than maybe even he knows. So we decided to like take a big swing, like a lot of our heroes, and just dive into it. So it's 6 issues of 6 different time periods, right? All of which tell the story of Christian Walker at that time, right? So first he was early man, and then he was a Conan the Barbarian, and then he was in the samurai culture, like the different, and then the mystery men of the 30s. Like they're always identifying these time periods and really having fun with it, examining it from our point of view. And yeah, a little bit of arrogance to say new storyline and have an almost silent issue of like 2001 Kubrick monkeys
We knew we were taking a
going
chance,
at
and
each other.
we did lose like 1,000. Like
No,
we
we
had a drop.
gained. This is my favorite part of the story is that
You're changing the story again.
no, no,
We
no,
lost readers.
You're
no, our
mythologizing. You're
numbers went up.
mythologizing.
Chance, we knocked them off.
We got because we said new storyline. And this was between the time I had done Spider-Man and Daredevil, and I was just about to start Avengers, right? So there was even more spotlight and attention that we were able to give to Powers, right? And so it was a new storyline just about the same time as my Avengers was coming out on the cover of USA Today. New storyline, and then you open it up, it's just monkey fucking yeah.
Explicit monkey nudity.
And if you were told this is a cop book about murders, not even a hint or a flashback or flash forward. So
Oh
and then
God.
and then Image said, "Oh, because it's a new storyline and where you are, you actually gained 800 new readers, right?" So there was like 800 people who read this book cold without knowing what it was, going, "What the fuck?" And we got a letter from all of them. We got so much mail on this book for so many years, like old school
Oh, the
email.
letters column was one of the best things.
Oh,
Yeah.
because and to the point where I thought for sure I'm on some AOL watch list because every header said monkey fucker, monkey fucking, the fucking of monkeys, and there was like no way that I'm not flagged on some list somewhere. So
Oh, you guys got to collect those. I don't know if you got to get
we
permission,
did.
but I mean, you should do like a special edition all letter column.
We did do that, and we did it for charity too. And I will say that over the years, the thing that's aged the worst is our letter column.
Oh,
So
for sure.
we kind of retired it. Um, a lot of what was punching up at the time now looks like me punching down, full stop. So
Well,
just
and
things like
unlike
that.
Walker, we grew as men.
No, but
We
even
did
like
learn things.
the stuff that I was like I really took a lot of pride in this little section in the letter column called No Life, where I would talk about like the things I liked that week, like what books was I reading, what comedy was I listening to, and when they would send me back, hey, we're gonna reprint this in the trade, and I would read the No Life section. I don't like any of this. Like I wouldn't recommend any of this. It was really surprising to me, so I just got rid of it.
So we were just talking about like a lot of powers. I mean, there are mature themes, there's graphic content. How important was that to your vision of the series?
I couldn't see another way to do it. I'm right, Mike. I couldn't.
Yeah, it
We
felt
talked about it.
truthful. It was truthful, but I won't lie that I didn't, especially as a younger person, revel in it. I knew sometimes I was shocking people. One of the best compliments I ever got was a guy who said, "I have my girlfriend tag pages that are disgusting, like exploded bowels and stuff, like because he had such a weak stomach that he couldn't look at those pages. Like I remember this one FG3, there's like a double page spread of somebody on the toilet who exploded, and I got out like anatomy. So like I got anatomy books out. So like I knew this was the liver that had landed on this side and how much intestines could possibly like twirl out. And then some of it was clearly like feces and blood. And I gotta admit that I don't know that I would do that today as an older person, but like
You
as
did it
a
last week. I'm going to resend you an art from this issue of Powers where you went
okay.
nuts. Yeah.
All right.
No,
Well, I'm
what's
glad I
funny?
still got a little bit. I don't want all my edges carved off as I get older, you know.
I
Well,
hope he
it just
married his girlfriend, that guy. I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, that's a
that's
keeper.
that's that's a big
Yeah.
commitment there,
But
flagging
I will
everything.
say, as the writer, I would write "This body is dead on the toilet," and maybe I would write, "Oh, it was so gross" or something like that, right? but I wouldn't like go, and their heart is dangling off their third
He didn't
vertebrae.
do that.
Like
That
that.
was
It's
me.
sometimes the art would come in. I'm like, all right, Mike's working out some stuff. That's all
I
right.
remember once
We have our
somebody I
art.
drew somebody had been thrown out of a building, and like I drew them as if they'd fallen out of a plane. And Brian wrote back, "It was a 5-story building, Mike."
Yeah, explode
It
like
was
a balloon of blood.
I don't know. You can play fast and loose with physics.
yeah.
No,
um,
it's to me. I'm not. That's one of jokes aside. It's one of my favorite parts of being in a collaboration. Is you're yes anding each other. It's like very improv. Like
right.
we're elevating ideas instead of supporting and elevating instead of getting in each other's way. And
Yeah,
that
yeah, for
it's like
sure.
how do you know a
Brian's
collaboration?
never asked me in almost 30 years, never asked me to redraw something. He's always worked with what I sent him. He's always yes ended. Um, and I think all
I've
the
asked. He always goes, "I can't hear you. What are you saying?" and hangs up.
we only had one bumping of the heads. It was the funniest thing ever.
Yeah.
And it's really inappropriate.
Yeah, I
This is
don't think you
definitely
should go here.
something that as we gotten older we wouldn't do now. But there's a scene where Satan shows up and he is threatening to relieve himself in Walker's face if he doesn't do something. And like I drew like 6 or 7 dicks in his hand, and like Brian's like, "It's too many dicks." I was like, "No, no, it needs to be multiple dicks. If it's one dick, it's too realistic. It needs to be like multiple." And that was our one argument
Oh,
because
you
we
didn't
were
go to the
adults.
punchline on this one?
Go
Because
for it.
we
Oh,
were,
I
uh,
sent it
we
to
were,
Joe Casada, right?
yeah, we were debating back and forth for a while about what Satan's dick would look like and and Mike just decides to get a tiebreaker and sends it to Joe Casada, our boss and our friend and a fellow Jerseyan. So I think that's why Mike felt like Joe will get it. And
Somehow I didn't see anything inappropriate about it.
and Joe just wrote back, "What the fuck is wrong with you guys?" And that was
But
and you
also like all that grossness really worked because of the cartoonishness of the art. Like if I drew like really seriously, I probably would have pulled stuff back because it's almost redundant, right? Like, but that contrast between the cartooniness and then the horribleness
yeah, tone is
worked really.
everything.
It said something. It wasn't just because we were young and being goofy and stuff. Like it felt right. It felt like the artistic choice to make.
yeah.
Yeah, tone is everything. I had an experience last night where someone was bringing up like these super serious sci-fi movies never really landing with an audience because the author is so like, I'm so serious. I'm like, you know what? Once the alien or time travel shows up, if there isn't some like reaction that is humanistic and
Yeah,
people lose interest immediately. If you're self-serious, it's just you lose your point. You're like it's
yeah.
and that's
Imagine
like
aliens without game over,
there's
dude,
tons of
or
jokes
put
in
her
there.
in charge,
Yeah.
right? Like without that, it would just be pretty not,
No,
not quite boring, but it would have lost a lot.
Cold. Yeah.
no, there was
Yeah.
a time travel movie I recently saw that was like taking itself crazy serious and not working. And then I was watching Endgame out of the blue with my son, and they literally go time travel, like literally, and the Hulk literally says something like, "Hey, it's either a joke or it's not." Like he even says like either we have fun with this or
Yeah.
fuck off. And like
Right.
that's the right energy. Like once you bring
Yeah.
crazy to it, don't
And
pretend
like
it's not crazy.
and like Breaking Bad, hysterical.
Yep.
Goodfellas, dark crime stuff, hysterical. Sopranos had plenty of funny stuff going on. The Wire had incredibly funny stuff going on. You wouldn't think of it as like I
Yep.
still remember. Sometimes Taki and I will look around the room and just go, "Fuck, fuck,
At each other,
fuck."
or what are you talking about?
And it was and in The Wire. Remember they were in a crime
Oh,
scene. And there was no
oh yeah, yeah.
dialogue, just them reacting to like the bullet holes and the blood, and like they're putting it together. They're communicating just by pointing at stuff, going, "Fuck, fuck." That was the whole scene. Hysterical.
There's
Yeah.
also the character that would just go she.
Yeah, yeah. It's Putty and I forget the other guy. Yeah,
Yeah, hysterical.
But I'm also a believer in some of these over the top ideas being put into this is that we were often in a position to say like, well, you're going to get stuff in this book that you're not going to get anywhere else, right? And so often that would be our unique. You want to see the monkey fucking book, you ain't going to see it in Captain America, and
Yeah, we had the freedom. We
I
had
can
the
almost
freedom.
guarantee it. So
Yeah.
that was, we were always looking for the idea. We don't think anyone else would or could do at the job that they had. And particularly at this point, one of the gifts of Powers was I was working at Marvel. So I was working with the guardrails that comes with writing Spider-Man, which is, there's a level of violence and maturity that it will not go to, and nor should it. I'm not it's Spider-Man. It's supposed to be for this. So having the
Yeah.
experience of, oh, to be creative in those guardrails versus, oh, we're the guardrails of this thing. So if that's then let's celebrate that. Let's not censor ourselves or put guardrails up where we don't need to. Our guardrails are all storytelling devices.
Yeah, there's like I said, I'm a big believer, and there's a time and a place for everything.
Hmm.
And it depends what your story is, you know.
Yep.
On the
And
opposite
I can
end,
see how,
go
like,
ahead.
I see how some of that's changed even with the current powers we're doing, because we're saying different things about the world. So
Oh, well, no,
they're
we have a different agenda, and also there's so much swearing in Superman and Fantastic Four that I'm like, oh, we are just in a different world of language. That, like, I literally, both Superman and Fantastic Four has more than one swears,
Mhm.
wow,
lots of
really?
swearing going on, just as language, right? And even to think back to the first X-Men movie when he goes, "You're a dick," and that was the craziest thing we'd ever heard in a thing. That's
Yeah.
the least thing Guy Gardner says in Superman. So
Wow.
it's yeah, it's a different world we live in. So our relationship to everything has changed. Genre, comics, language, our relationship to it, what we want to say about superheroes, what we want to say about the world, everything has
Yeah,
changed.
power and authority is very different than when, we left off
Yep.
in the real world, in a really dark, horrible way.
So we're going to bring some light to the darkness.
All right. At the risk of getting a little boring, and I don't know if it is boring, but I wanted to switch a little bit over to cityscapes and the city because
Oh, this ain't boring.
it's a big character, right? As it is in any kind of crime noir genre, work. And Michael, you're, as much as we talk about, the explicit scenes, you're drawing a hell of a lot more buildings and dark alleys and things like that.
Mm.
How do you keep, first of all, do you like doing that? And second of all, how do you keep things, again, sort of fresh and interesting for you and for the reader when you're doing a lot of this cityscape work?
I love the cityscape stuff. It is a character, and a lot of it just goes back to a pretty obvious influence, which is Will Eisner, who I think early on pioneered cities as characters. And I written and drawn an issue of the Spirit for DC way back in the day. So I really deep dived into what he was doing, even more so than I had before, about like how he was using buildings, how he was, he did his thing with the Spirit, the title would be a cityscape and stuff. And I started to bring that into Powers, but even before that, early on, the cityscapes were a big part of it, because superheroes flying through cities and superheroes running on rooftops and stuff, it was so mythological to me because I grew up in a small colonial town in New Jersey, right? So cities were already mythologized to me. I remember on the main highway there of 130, there was a sign for, it was like New York City, 103 miles or something, right? So in my head, it was always a special place. And a few times when I would go to a friend's house in Philadelphia and we can get roof access and you could see all like the water towers and all this kind of stuff, all that really got into my head. But it was really the Will Eisner stuff. And to this day, it's my favorite thing. And I started to struggle, and this would be a whole other conversation. As I'm working digitally, there's a perfection that comes with working digitally that you don't get with freehanding stuff. But there's also level detail, and it all is sort of these weird trade-offs. So I have a really interesting time figuring out, when am I going to draw something by hand? When is it going to be really high detailed digital? I think as long as in the end it's saying something uh, about the city and about the tone, that's what matters most. And in the current series, we have a repeating montage with our credits it's got the Powers logo on it and it's superimposed, and it's like, it's the environment becoming a character. And I always just imagine, like, it's like a giant maze. The city's a giant maze where, like, whether you're in the streets or going through the buildings, where all these stories and characters are hidden and clues, and you're going through it and stuff. So I appreciate that you recognize it as like a part of the as a character.
Yeah.
I also, it's when I can tell, like when Mike hands in art, I can see, oh, he's having a blast. Like you can literally see from the way it's drawn, he's just having the best time. And we had similar set pieces in our other book, Murder Inc., on sale now from Dark Horse Comics, where Mike and Taki just went nuts. And it's a bit of a world traveler. You get to go to Vegas and Tokyo and the Vatican, and so there's a lot of different things to draw that we wouldn't normally get to do in Powers. And he'd just go nuts, and you're like, oh, he's having a blast. And so sometimes, like for readers, you don't know when you're looking at a beautiful piece of art, do know that I promise you the artist is having the best time while they were doing it. You can see it. So,
So before we
But I
move
hate
on to,
but I hate
go
drawing
ahead.
cars. But I hate drawing
and
cars
dogs.
and dogs.
I feel like I've heard from every artist there's one or two things that is just nope.
And I think
Not
just to fuck
consistent.
with him, I know it sounds meaner than it was. He turned to me and goes, "Man, I hate drawing cars and dogs." And then I wrote, "Interior car. Walker bought a new dog." And I think you blew the dog up, right? The
Yeah,
minute
yeah, meteor hit the dog.
So I had Walker has a dog, like a crypto, and and something hits Walker's house, the dog ripped in half in the foreground. Hilarious.
You would have thought he would have been in the car and Walker gets out and then the car and the dog just go.
Yeah.
Yeah,
We can avoid the dogs. Cars is a little harder. Cars is
Yeah.
part of
Cars
yeah. I
that's
get
tough.
by. I just don't enjoy it. I just don't
Yeah.
enjoy them. Yeah.
I totally get it.
So as I said, I definitely want to move on to the new series, although we've been sprinkling it in during the conversation. But looking back of 25 years of these stories and characters and building this world, do you see its influence and impact in the comic book or even beyond the comic book world? Do you see how it's kind of branched out and given other people maybe not direct homages or anything, but sort of ideas of what these comics can be?
Oh, real quick. There's an easy answer for this, and Brian, get into as much as you want to. It's our font, the Powers font, the power. Like the amount of times we've seen Powers reused, whether it's just the font or it's a different version of Powers. Like,
So
There
Mike,
you go.
behind you, the logo behind you.
Yep.
When we were lucky enough to get our own TV show, like adult lawyers in real life has to comes into it, and a lot of it's a blast and fun, but the lawyers get involved. I think it's squirrely, so I had to, on behalf of both of us, go buy that font. So we owned the logo full blast, so we could use it for the TV show. At the time, it was one of those free fonts, like from a free font file from the 90s, you know.
Right.
I don't even know if they have them anymore, but there's just like a Canva has all those fonts you can just use, right?
Sure.
So it was just floating around, and the guy let us use it, and it was very cool. And then when it became a legal issue, Sony made us we had to become the owners of the font, so we had to go back to the guy and say how much you want for it. So we had to buy a font. And so we own it, and that's great. But every once in a while, we go somewhere and our font is just used somewhere. Like if you go to, I'll say it, Dave and Buster's, they have the word power on the wall in that font. Like someone just literally cut and pasted it off. I'd say some graphic designer just yanked it off the internet. They just typed in power and found our logo and just used it. God bless. I've done similar. But if you go and go, get free tokens. They don't have to pay me. I don't think I should have to pay to go to Dave and Buster's. I think me and Mike should get a free once a month, a free meal and a big pile of tokens or whatever the fuck. Power card.
I think you
Anyway.
could come to some arrangement.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but of all the weird things that have happened in the world, that was like Yeah,
That was the
every
weirdest.
once in a
Yeah.
while, they're like the font shows up somewhere, and it's always with
Yeah.
the word. Yeah.
Yeah, we'll send each other pictures of it. It's pretty funny. The only
Uh,
I remember a beer company using Dina, like a pose of Dina for their thing, which was weird because they also redrew it. Like they traced it, but they redrew it. Not a big deal. It's all been really, it's all been nice. Like I'll have artists and I know Brian side of the writers and other creators just tell us that Powers was a huge influence on them one way or the other. Whether it was why they started reading comics or that my art itself was influential on them or it's just the book made them want to do cool stuff. Like that's some of the best things you can
See,
ever
I get a
hear in
lot of
comics.
creators come up and go like, and they go, "If you two idiots could do it." No, no, but it's hard for me to hear and see. We have had some of our peers and people we admire come up and say nice things to us about the book. And so I would be a fool not to reference that happened, but I don't necessarily see it as I see
Yeah,
us
yeah.
more like a big part of a longer conversation that Watchmen started years ago.
Mm.
That includes Black Hammer and Minor Threats and like the things with a genuine original take on what that could be. So I don't I see us as part of that conversation, but not any
Yeah,
get.
you're right. It's a good way to put it is like I hear it. You hear it from people telling you, but like I don't pick up something and go, "Oh, this was blah blah
But the
blah."
one thing
Right.
I do know that I've done, and I want to share this with other creators, so maybe they can think about doing it as well, is that Mike and I grew up in the land of Spielberg and Lucas, where they not only did the greatest magic trick you ever saw, but they immediately told you how they did it. We grew up with behind the scenes of Raiders of the Lost Ark, behind the scenes of Star Wars. Here's how the land speeder looks like a land speeder. Like these things that were blowing our minds and then immediately showed us the behind the scenes. Take us behind the scenes. Let us be part of how you made it. Feel so confident in the mistakes you've made and the journey that you're on that you can share it with other people and not feel like you're going to be judged for it, right? So we did the same thing. We put a power script book and did a lot of behind the scenes, like here's the sketches, here's how we make a scene. And it's not in the because we think we know better. It's here's what we've learned so far. We want to share it with you. You took the time to buy the book, so if you want more, we have it. So let's share it with you, right? And because we love when people take us behind the scenes on anything, we love it. So we took people behind the scenes. So it's weird when people come to me and go, "Hey, I bought the Power Script book and I figured out how to write a script," and I go, "What?" Like, but I'm like, "Oh no, that's why we did it." Like, I
Right.
have a
Yeah,
weird relationship to, yeah, we did that for that reason. Accept the compliment when it comes, and that's the book I will never write is how to accept a compliment because I do. So, but that is, and I do want to share with people sharing their behind the scenes stuff, like people do on Instagram and stuff. But a lot of people don't. A lot of people like don't show their sketch work. Like you think people think I don't know how to draw or something. I'm like, no, no, no. It's okay. Share. It inspires more than it doesn't.
Yeah.
And I really that's part of the community of creators that we're all part of. Like we have to. You could be inspiring someone you'll never meet and never speak to.
Agreed. Let me tell you a couple of things that I think I picked up on in terms of your influence, or maybe you weren't the first, but I think you were among the formative projects. One is sort of this modern creator-owned, approach at Image. I mean, there was obviously creator-owned before there was independence, but the sort of and maybe it's just for Image, but sort of like you were among the first very hot, very successful part of where I think we've gotten to today. Like if I were to make a comparison, Netflix, right? I mean, you weren't what I forget the name of it, Lilyhammer, but you were like oranges. You were Orange is the New Black. You know what I mean? I mean, I think that sort of
I
the
got that
project,
reference.
yeah, that proved that this is a viable way of doing things for creator-owned work. So I think that is a big sort of
I
legacy of
appreciate
yours.
that. I think I speak for Mike and I when both we know whose shoulders we're standing on,
Of
and
course.
like Howard Chaykin did it before
Yes.
us. Like there was Will
Stan
Eisner.
Sakai has been doing it. That's crazy how long he's been doing it, and he still owns it for
I,
all.
I
So he says, yeah.
I will say we often felt, particularly in those early years, that a lot of people got bloody so we could have a better time of it than like we got to celebrate our creator ownership where other people had to fight tooth and nail for it. And
Yeah.
that idea I was reminded of early and often that we're having a much easier like Sony bought the rights to our book like between the second and third issue or something like that and we owned it and there was no hardship and no problem and it was around that time where I was like hearing one horror story after the other of publishers acting bad or creators falling apart on each other or just people thought they were doing creator owned surprised it wasn't creator owned that still happens to this day by the way and so we really celebrated our creator owned and my arrogant philosophy of creator owned is if you can't pick it up and leave, you don't own it, right? And there's some people where they were doing quote unquote creator owned books for DC at the time, and I'm like, I don't think unless you can take it and go, it ain't yours.
Right.
It's a partnership. It is that's fine too. It's great to have a partnership. You made that choice, but they were calling things creator owned when they weren't. And so when we have proven many times we can pick up powers and leave. So as we have been published by Marvel, DC, Image, Dark Horse, Oni, and the list goes on.
Another thing I think you guys would probably push back on me for because
I'm sorry
again,
for
you're
the
not.
pushback. I just
No, you're not. I didn't even mean to say that you guys were the first to do any of this, but just like in this sort of mode that I think has carried through. I think
uh,
you were among
but
the
I
early.
just want to say that creator own is a celebratory act. Like
Yes.
you own it and own it with a friend. And just like being in any kind of relationship, be it business or emotional, and creative is both. You have to nurture it and celebrate it and keep it going and really keep an eye on it and don't take it for granted and read your paperwork. And if you can't do it, if you can't read your paperwork, marry someone or find someone who will. Right. We because there's another partner here. It's my wife Elisa, who has kept this ship afloat
Mhm.
when we know once Sony called, we were like, oh, we were not prepared. We were not going to be prepared for that if my
Yeah.
wife hadn't like been the adult in the room and made all the paperwork good. Because literally
Yeah.
from the time we signed our partnership deal to the time we got our TV show, was years had gone by and we forgot what we had even agreed to as partners. And like we,
Yeah.
we didn't remember until someone made us pull out the paperwork and prove ownership. And we're like, oh, yeah, great. We're glad we did that because some of our
Yeah.
friends didn't and didn't get the rewards for it. And again, this is a very comic book idea. I just want to make my comics, man. I don't want to do all this paperwork. And
And lawyers are expensive,
yeah,
especially in an industry where you're not making money in the first place. I signed away the rights, my film and merchandising rights and everything for a trade paperback. So when I was doing Ship of Fools with Brian Glass, this is like one of the very first creator owned things I did. Now we own all the publication rights, but I have no agent or anything like that. And this person was willing to pay to give us a trade paperback, which at the time was like a mark of success that like they not everybody had a trade paperback, you know. And I said, and the words were in perpetuity, right? And I can say this is free advice. Never sign anything that says in perpetuity. Never. I watched Shark Tank and people were like, you want to get 50 cents to Mr. Wonderful for in perpetuity? You know, for a thing. No, 20 years. Okay. Something. So it
Right.
ends never in perpetuity. I learned that one. Um,
but we have even like in the days where things were stressful and always high class stuff like are we getting a TV show or not? Like that's the level of stress. Boo hoo.
Yeah, yeah.
But having the paperwork locked and the partnership solid just makes that you never have to stress out about that. And we again, like I said before, we have watched partnerships fall apart under the stress of not taking care of this like adults when they should have. And so we say this not to do what we do, but we lucked out and someone did it for us, do get it done. Because whether or not you think your webcomic with your best friend from high school is going to be big business or the next Star Wars or not, you don't get to choose that. Like
Yeah.
you may be sitting on Star Wars.
Yeah.
Get your paperwork done, right? And if not, okay, no one will, no hard, no harm, no foul, right? But like even Murder Inc. Like we literally said, Murder Inc. will never be optioned, and it got optioned immediately, right? We were
Yeah.
so grateful. So yeah,
Yeah. It's always better to be proactive in this sort of paperwork and lawyer
yeah.
places
Yeah,
rather
so
than reactive because you pay for it later. If you're like, oh wait, now I need a lawyer, then you're
Creator Owned is
yeah, you're
filled
screwed.
with bad behavior and gangsters. They call them other things now, but it's gangsters. It's
Yeah,
the same. It's you're taking something that doesn't belong to you. You're a gangster. So yeah, again, there's a lesson here. We just want to celebrate
sure,
what it actually is. We are standing
sure.
on the shoulders of people who work very hard to make our
Yes,
life easier. So
yes. And the other dimension I was going to mention, again, not you being first necessarily, but I think there's some influence there, is sort of the genre smashing, the genre
that one
combining,
I'll
right?
own. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So, the police procedural with the superhero genre, and you started to see a lot more things that are combining different genres, like the new, well, it's maybe not genre, well, sort of the new Predator movies as they're coming out, right? So obviously sci-fi, but sci-fi with either an older, they're more just location based, but or era based. But I think there's a lot more of that than there used to be in comics and in other media. And I think Powers was one of the first to do it extremely well.
Well, we were certainly riding a wave, at least I was personally. I love mashups. I love music mashups. I used to go to all the websites that would have these DJs putting these illegal mashups together. I'm sure some
Too
people.
many DJs. Yeah.
Yeah, too many
Yeah.
DJs. Perfect. Like DJ Ben. Shout out to DJ Ben, who's put out these elaborate, awesome mashups that I would ride my bike to for hours a day, and to the point where my whole brain was mashed up. So like I know for a fact that I was kind of hypnotizing myself to see genre blends, and also there would be things like we talked about, like why is Goodfellas so funny? It's always when a genre surprises you by being not exactly what you thought it was going to be, and Powers from the way Mike draws it was going to already be that, right? So I got really into like the mashup of and would say, and I forget, I stole this from somebody. It's like if you're doing a blend of genres, you have to be the best cop book and the best superhero book. You can't be a
One or the
shitty
other.
superhero book and a great cop book. You have to be trying to be excellent at both. And that was actually when I was working on at the Marvel Creative Committee, and they started figuring that out, that their strength for the Marvel Universe would be that none of these are the same genre. They're all
Hmm.
Marvel movies, but
Yeah,
Captain America is 3 Days of the Condor, and
yeah,
Asgard is they're all different. They're different, and once they started labeling that way, I was in the room going, "Oh yes, that is so right to me." It's so what's interesting to me is that there's been all over the world in every medium possible, everyone reaching for something else out of the genre or blending genres or fusing them together or breaking them apart, but fucking with genre now for decades, right? So here we are at a place where genre isn't so much a statement of storytelling, but more like a spice. Like when you hear people describe things like, "Oh, it's a romantic comedy with political thriller undertones," like it's like a stew of
right.
genre ideas put together, hopefully in an original, exciting way. But that as we enter our new era of powers, I am hyperly aware of, and that I have been working on. Though I didn't mean to, I'm a genre baby, but I am part of a society that has maybe dismantled genre as a storytelling idea. Like again, there would be crime fiction and romantic comedy and drama, and now it's very hard to, even when you see on Hulu, when you see a label and you go, "Oh, you think that's a drama?" Like you
Yeah,
like
like
when they label
what
it,
is Russian doll? Like
yeah, exactly. But it's so like these things that are undefinable. We're more in that space than we are even now. And even watching people like wrap their heads around the new storytelling ideas behind Fantastic Four and Superman, or
Mhm.
what's going on, like, or even like what's like watching Peaky Blinders, which is technically a period piece crime genre, except it isn't, right? It's just
Yeah.
everything I see, like you can see what else it is now, and that's kind of goddamn amazing. I'm thrilled to be part of it, and I know that because when I see other people do it, I get super excited. So I know
Awesome.
that that's the right space for me,
Yeah.
at least, right? And also, Mike can draw anything exciting. I know
except
he's
cars.
about some cars and dogs.
And dogs.
Even that, there's an energy to it because he doesn't want to do it. But like
Yeah,
there's
I'll
nothing.
compensate that. Yeah.
Mike's like a lot of the great comic book artists that there's nothing he can't draw. So everything that comes out of his pen looks equally commanding. Bagley is similar to this in my regard. Like everything, you believe everything you're seeing because everything is drawn with the same command, and that makes when things that don't belong together are together and they work, it's because of a steady hand like Mike's. And that's
No,
also
thank
one,
you.
not to go on a tangent, but when J.H. Williams started doing Echolands and had all these characters from different genres show up on the same panel in their art form.
Yeah.
Like even that, I'm like, 10 years ago, that would have never worked. That would have not been able to work. But our society and our relationship to genre has changed so much that that book can exist in the way it is and look great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
We
told
we
him this
we
thing.
have as an audience become more sophisticated as the storytelling has become more sophisticated, I think. And
So in
so
this
we're able to go along on the ride as you guys as the creators are sort of leveling up.
and some of this is about how much story people take in versus how they used to.
Hmm.
Um, in the book Story by Robert McKee, he opens
Hmm.
the book by saying that this and the book's like 30 years old at this point. So he's in the 90s talking about more people watch story in this generation than have ever watched it before. It used to be that you'd go see one movie or read one book or go see a TV show, right? Now you do that a day,
Right.
right? And that was in the 90s. Now people binge like 10 seasons of a show in a day, right? For reals. Or I have a friend who literally said, "Oh, I'm going to watch What We Do in the Shadows," and the next thing he goes, "That was awesome." I go, "All 5 seasons?" Yeah. So, and I've done it too, but I try to like luxuriate in a little bit, not like
Yeah.
overwhelm myself. But our relationship to story with binging and with the way we consume and how much we consume changes our relationship to it. And when you see people talk about like a fatigue of a genre or something, it's no, we've seen all of that. Show us something else.
Yeah.
That's what they're talking about. They're not talking about, no, we want superheroes and we want stories, but you have to show us something else every time.
Right.
So,
Right.
and when we, and watch me bring it on home. And as we decided to come back to Powers, it was with all of this in mind for realsies. It was like I have new things to say. You have new things to say. We went like and we were literally thinking about what book could we say these new things in. And Mike goes, "Well, we could do it in Powers." Like I want, like, and I was always the one going, like, get off stage before it's too late, right?
Right.
And how lucky
Before
we
they
were
kick
to
you
be.
off.
Yeah, but no one ever kicked us off.
Right.
Like no one even hinted at it. And then when we put out the best ever graphic novel, and I think it's like in its third printing, and you're like, all right, so we're the ones, and maybe I'm the one.
We just missed the characters, just missed
Yeah.
them. Missed the whole world, you know. Yeah.
So, so
And
here
that
we
was the
are.
most important part, you know. Did we want to do this?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. No, great segue, Brian. That's exactly how I was going to do it. I said, how does this all feed into Powers 25? And it seems like, this is this heady stew of storytelling and more sophisticated. audiences is all, ripe for exploration in the world you've built. Curious, how when did this thought come into your? I mean, were you just literally like 25th anniversary is coming up, or did you have, another story that you sort of retrofitted to Powers? How did it really just kind of come about? And also, how did you arrive on the format? Like, did you think it was just going to be a special, or do you always knew it was going to be a series?
I still think the best ever graphic novel is the best we've ever done. And I was just looking at it again to reference something for Cutter. Um, and I was flipping through it, and I was blown away by what Mike accomplished in that book. It's truly an incredible cartoon experience from Mike, and I think, well, that's as good. And when we were done with it, I thought, well, that's as good as it gets. Like there's no and so maybe for the moment that's how I felt, but as goes by, and also I did two things. Number one, I took a superhero break. I had put myself on and luxuriated, enjoyed every second of being on a very high moving hamster wheel of multiple monthly superhero books at one time at both companies. So excited to do all of them, and I love that I did every one of them. But I did say to myself, "You can stop too." Like there was a bit of a compulsion to it, and I felt that there was a compulsion. I said, well, maybe let's take a break for a second, right? Um, and so I took not off of comic books or graphic novels. I've been making tons of stuff, Phenomena, Masterpiece, the ones, but my relationship to superheroes is like, well, maybe I have said everything I had to say at a high rate of stuff. And also I was looking at some other creators in different mediums and thinking that they maybe are repeating themselves. And then I thought, I think you're talking about yourself. And so stop for a minute and see what you have to say, or see if you are. Also, I was worried that I was censoring my creativity by staying in a lane, if that
Mhm.
makes sense. And I had wrestled my way out, half because of Powers. I was known as a crime writer for the 90s, right? And I had and there was some writer, I think it was Richard Price, that said, as soon as someone puts a label on you, fight it with everything you can because you'll never be able to get out of that box. You have to get the fuck out of that box immediately. And I was like, yes, sir. And even though like no one cares, but I really did take that seriously. And then I became a superhero writer. And then it just became writer. Right. And that's it's hard to do, but people, if you're lucky enough to have anyone pay attention to you, they want to put a label on you and then keep you there in that label. And some people get so excited to have a label that they don't realize that they're also putting a shelf life on you, right? So it's up to you to like diversify your interests and your output and what you put out there in the world. So when the DC contract was up, um, I was like, all right, Miles Morales has opened a door where I can do graphic novels of different kinds of stuff for different people. Let's go do that while it's open, right? And included in that space was working with Patton Oswalt and Jordan Bloom had called and said, "Hey, will you do some minor threats with us, like you and Matt Fraction, and like we want to do this series of minor threat stories by other creators, and we're not going to ever tell you what to do. We'll just like go for it, right?" And I remember going, "Oh man, that's so cool," and also like we're in like the same, like even though their take is completely different than ours, but there's a Watchmen baby vibe to minor threats that I could examine from a different point of view because this is Patton and Jordan's world, right? So I can like look at it from their point of view. And literally, I think I was 4 pages in to just loving writing minor threats when I called up Mike and go, right, we're gonna go back to Powers. Like I love this. I love this, right? And at the same time, I had written down and talked with Mike at great length about a series of ideas and feelings we had about our culture, about society, about our business, about everything, about our work. that we wanted to visit in a story, and it became clear, yeah, in Powers, the thing where you make, and where you can have the most fun with it, right? Because the first thing is that Powers is a homicide case that is fun to solve. Like and anything that we're bringing to it that has meaning, that's just spice. That's not like, we're not lecturing anybody. It's just we have things we want to say. And also, Powers, on many occasion, the original book was also about the industry it was being published in. We would be frustrated with or delighted by certain behavior that we would put in the book itself, as our feelings about things, right? So we have new feelings about things, even the feelings about being a Watchman baby. I'll tell you this right off the bat, is that one of the big things is that Powers was a Watchman baby, and that was unique even in the late 90s to be a Watchmen baby. But it's been 25 years since then, and you could look at certain movies and TV shows that are on the air as mainstream entertainment that are 100% Watchmen babies. Captain America Brave New World was one where I went, that's a Watchmen baby. The President's a Hulk, right? Like that is a Watchmen idea, and that's great, right? And they're doing new Watchmen comics over at DC. They're doing Doomsday Clock and Watchmen 2 and all this stuff. So the idea of being a Watchmen baby isn't unique. And another generation might look at all of this with much different eyes, some much more celebratory, and much more demanding of, I think a lot of us, and I won't be shying away from, grew up thinking my heroes were one kind of person only to discover they were a different kind of person. And I don't think it's cool, and I don't think it's charming or romantic. It's just a fucking bummer to find out that someone you admired was actually a piece of shit, right? So,
How fascinating is it that like when Power started out, like a big influence on it was behind the music, and it was and these other things about our fascination with
media.
celebrity.
Yep.
Mhm.
And you think about it now, celebrity is dead. There are still a few stars. What, Sydney Sweeney was like the new one, I guess.
No,
There's like three
there's always
there's three
celebrity.
or four of them, but people just don't care anymore,
No,
and
they don't
there's
look
no
up to them.
roles for them anymore. Like, there's no great films. There's very few great films coming out now. Television, there's very few television shows right now. I mean, I was just watching a commercial the other day, and like the amount of movie stars and television stars who are now basically just doing commercials or game shows versus having roles. Part of that's because nobody cares.
Oh no,
You
because
know,
that
like
game show money is big money, man.
I
You
know, I know
you
it's money,
get a
but it's
game
not
show
role.
gig. You want Alec
I know
Baldwin
it's
in the
I
game
know it's
show?
easy money, but it's not the acting roles, right? And your average person, like if you scroll through TikTok, they don't. Yeah, there's rumors about like famous people and stuff. It's just not like it was before. That the hero worship is gone. When Tom Cruise dies, he's the last giant movie star. That's very, very different than
Well,
when we.
I half disagree. I think the relationship, I think it's all there. I think there's celebrities and famous people, and people are famous for stupid reasons, and people are famous for the best reasons and infamous reasons. And uh, but the relationship that the society has to them is very different.
That's all changed. Yeah, like the fact that your YouTube people will have they're bigger stars than the movie stars.
Yeah.
Like you'll have YouTube influencers go on Saturday Night Live. Their views are way more on their TikToks and their YouTube than Saturday Night Live will ever have. You
No,
can combine all of the Saturday Night Live, and it won't touch what your average guy. That guy Speed something. He just went through Japan and stuff. Like it's crazy. And like yeah. So what celebrities are, what they mean to people, what people want to be as celebrities now is very, very different. And it's great for Powers. It's great for our new Powers to jump into and to look at this and like go like, yeah, we don't want to be like that,
yeah, yeah.
and then watch them make the same mistakes.
Yeah, watching, like, so we wanted to tell a story about, like, with this murder comes the realization that this new generation of powers is so revolted by the naughty behavior of past generations. They don't find it funny. They don't think it was cool. It's just fucking gross. And maybe we can live up to what we thought they were, maybe we can be that is something I was really interested in seeing. Well, and this was actually based on a conversation me and Fraction had with our kids. Who there was one celebrity in particular. They go, I wouldn't say who it was. They go, is this person not cool? And we're like, yeah, no, they're not. And we got in a conversation about like how like at least we're not perfect people, but at least we're trying to be what we thought they were selling, but it's frustrating because you know that they were full of shit, right? But the idea wasn't full of shit.
Mm.
Just they were abusing the idea to make themselves look good. And so this idea I felt was damn well we're doing a year's worth of powers on. So we're heading in.
And there are like a handful of celebrities who grew over time, and they look back on their own material, like you were talking about David Letterman. Like he looked back and he, there's things that he regrets or he's learned from.
Oh,
It's
remember
amazing to
he had to
see
go on TV and say sorry. I'm a dude. Yeah.
well,
So
and yeah, like a comedian, most comedians seem to be locked in whatever year they became famous in, right? And then there's a very few, like to watch Bill Burr kind of change and look back on his own stuff and not change, but change,
yeah,
like
evolve.
and we can
Mm.
have those kind of hero things too. Like not everybody doesn't learn from the past. It's just that most people don't learn from the past.
Yeah. And they will be
Well,
murdered,
it
and they will be
sounds
murdered in powers. That's what we're talking.
it sounds like a fascinating story from all your not necessarily revealing but hinting at in terms of the direction of the story.
Well, I can give you the real pitch. So what
Okay, give me the pitch.
25. It's actually our 25th anniversary, but this is a new book. This is the story of Detective Cutter, who is a generational cop. For those who've been reading Powers forever, yep, it's the daughter of Detective Cutter who lost his head in volume 3. And but this is about a detective who has worked her ass off to get to Powers, to literally live in her father's shoes, even though her most traumatic moment of her life is the fact that her father was decapitated on the internet. Like it is, you can still watch it today. And she gets teamed up with a new character named Mobius Moon, who is the first powers detective, a detective with powers. It's always about the book has always been about people without powers being detective for people with powers, speaking for those who can't speak for themselves. But this is the first powers who is in powers. And as they're coming up, they're faced with a murder in a basement. There's a poker game, and there's a dead body with a hole where the face used to be. No blood, no guts, no brains, just a hole. And that hole is a big mystery as to who created the hole, what's the technology that made it, and is it technology that is going to destroy us, or was it a murder? And what is powers, and what is legacy, and what is generational, and all in the middle of it is Detective Captain Dina Pilgrim, Special Powers Captain Dina Pilgrim, who everyone who's ever read Powers will know, and if you haven't, don't worry about it, you'll find out, is one of the most infamous, notorious police officers in the history of history. She is, and we have seen, and that's just the stuff people know that she's done. We as reader know that she has done some bad stuff in the name of justice and good, in the name of the world of powers brings a morality unto itself that she had to save people do something that was morally bad. And you'll see if you go on my Instagram, you'll see I just posted this quote today. It's this great quote that Francis Ford Coppola said to Al Pacino that said, everything you get fired for as a young man is what you get the lifetime achievement for as an adult. Like, and so this is like everything Dina did that was bad is why people love her now, except her. She hates it, right? So we get to, and she is their mentor. So we have all these really deep, rich characters. Whether no matter where you are in your relationship with them, if this is your first issue, come on aboard. We are ready for you. We designed it that way. But it's also for people who've been with us, or people who just picked up the graphic novel for the first time. We know that too. This will be a very rich and rewarding experience for readers.
Fantastic. I love talking to these two. In fact, there is a little bit of pre-bonus footage If you subscribe to our Patreon, you get to see that, where we were chatting a little bit before we started the actual episode. And it's just as fun as what you just heard and saw. So definitely sign up for Patreon. You can get that and many other things. Thank you, Brian and Michael, for being on the show. Congratulations on 25 years of Powers. Thank you all out there for listening, for viewing, rating, reviewing, subscribing. We have at least another episode this week. We have more episodes on the way. Welcome back to school and work, and summer's over, but we're just getting started. So we will see you next issue.